Now, okay, we've decided we're going to go ahead and do a theme. Now, we could do what we would normally do, which is set up an index page and a CSS page, put in the doc type and some of the basic structure of the index page, and then just get set to coding. In fact, a lot of people, when they start theming, that's what they do. They create an index page and an HTML page and index and a CSS page, and then go from there. And then eventually they take the bits and pieces from the blog structure and insert them into the HTML they've created. There's another way to go, which is the way that most people end up going, and that is to be as lazy as possible. When I created this theme, I went out and found a theme that I liked, called White as Milk, and I just tweaked it little by little until it had the elements that I wanted and didn't have the elements I didn't want. There are now a number of, and I'll link to a list of them, theme frameworks. And these are themes that are designed to be tweaked, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, designed to have sort of sub-themes layered on top of them, called child themes. I'm going to take a quick look at two of these. I'm going to log into my blog, and I'll look under Appearance Themes. And you'll see I've got a few themes in here. There's the one I created, which is based on White as Milk, as it says. And then I've got a few in here that I could use. There's the classic 1.5, which I'm certainly not going to use. There's Starkers, and let's take a quick look at Starkers first. I'm going to go ahead and activate it. Alright, if this looks like it has no CSS, right? It just looks like a bunch of stuff. And that's because it has very little CSS. If we take a look at the, if we go to the editor, we can take a look at what a basic theme consists of. And a basic theme consists of primarily a style.css, and as I said, an index. In this case PHP, because we're going to be having some programming elements. So you'll see in all of these extensions it's .php rather than .html. It's a small change. All it does is it allows us to use a little bit of programming elements inserted in our PHP, and we don't even really need to deal with what they are, other than they happen to be hanging out there, and we'll see them as we go on. So we've got basically a style.css here, and what it does is it does bring in some small pieces. It brings in something that resets the CSS across browsers, so you have common CSS to start with, some basic typographic elements, and some basic layout elements. But to start with, it's a very basic site. Very little shows up or seems to be laid out in any particular way. Alright, we can go through the rest of these real quick. It's producing stuff from the blog, which is the important piece. We would have to kind of write all of this stuff to get it to produce stuff from the blog. And so it's helpful to have this kind of existing stuff that we would otherwise have to copy and paste out of somewhere. So rather than doing a bunch of copying and pasting, it is useful to have the basic skeleton there. Let me talk a little bit about some of the other files, because there's a bunch in here. As I said, at a very basic level, all we really need is this index and the style sheet. But there's a bunch of other pieces in here. First of all, there's alternatives to this main index. There's one for example, a single post, that is a permalink. There's one for a page. Those are things like about. There's pages like archives that list all of the archived, obviously, materials. There's the 404 page that shows up if someone tries to get to a page on your site that doesn't exist. These are all optional, but they're helpful to have. Then there's a bunch of them that are actually pieces of the page, things like footer and header and comments and sidebar. These get kind of shoved in to make up a page. In fact, if we look here, you'll see at the very end it says get sidebar, and that's where it brings in the sidebar, and down here it says get footer, and that's where it brings in the footer page. So basically it's a way of separating those out so we can edit them separately, and there's advantages to them. Finally, there's a weird one here, and that's theme functions, functions.php. Right now there's very little in here except something that allows you to have a sidebar with widgets. But this is where, if you wanted to do some programming related to your theme, sort of like plugins but related just to this theme, you could put them here. Again, it's optional, but it's kind of, and we won't deal with it in this module at all, but it's a place where we can put sort of functions. So this is a very basic kind of setup, and one that I very seriously considered using, and I'm still not sure it's not the best choice. The other choice we could look at is a theme that is a framework that's much more kind of developed and has more bells and whistles from the outset. In fact, it's in some ways really kind of heavy duty. And we're going to pull that in real quick and take a look at themes. And you'll see that there's one here called thematic. This is actually more than just one theme. It comes with a bunch of stuff kind of layered in it. I'm going to activate it. And it's really designed to be kind of built out without having to do a lot of the coding yourself. Now, let me explain for just a moment. We've just seen a bunch of things, and let's take a look again at the editor here. All themes have some collection, and this one actually has a few extra bits and pieces here in terms of extra files. One of the ways you can edit these is to go through and say, if I want to change something, I can edit the pages here and change, for example, the style sheet, and change the alignment or the padding, and have it all work out the way I want it to work out. That, although a lot of people push against it, is a perfectly fine way to do things. And that's what we're going to do here with thematic. I will note that thematic is designed to use child themes. That is, themes that kind of take this and instead of actually editing it, just layer on top of it and say, we'll take this piece and we'll leave this piece, or we'll change a little bit here and there. There's advantages to that. One of the major advantages is that you preserve what's called the upgrade path. I'm mentioning this because one of the ways of extending extending Drupal is to use child themes, and in fact the Zen theme is a very popular kind of core theme that you can use to build out themes from by declaring a child theme from that. So the sort of the standard way to use thematic is to create a child theme, and then to kind of change the CSS there, kind of say, okay, here's what you're saying you want, but we're going to just do some changes on top of that and leave the stuff we don't want to change. As I said, there's some significant advantages to that, but we're going to do it the wrong way here and actually mess around with thematic as a theme itself. And so rather than sort of doing the layering thing and doing it properly and using hooks to get at some of the functions, we're going to go in and just mess with this code directly because, frankly, it's easier. And so for this module, that's what we'll be doing. We'll kind of be making the changes when necessary to the CSS file here, the regular style.css, and to some of the templates as well for reorganizing the materials. So let's see at its basic level what it looks like, and then we'll move on from there to making some changes. We've activated it. Let's take a look at what that does to the page. All right, so we've got a bunch of things over here. We've got RSS links. We've got search in kind of 2 columns over here. We've got a bunch of things up here in the menu, and basically what this is all of the pages listed out as part of the menu. And I had never really intended all of the pages to be part of the menu, so that's kind of one of the things we'll have to change. But it's a very basic layout. Let's take back a look at here. If we look at the style sheet here, we'll see that it's bringing in this is not the layout that it may bring in for you. I've made a quick change to the version that's on my server. Normally it brings in a different one, but there's a number of CSS files, style sheets in there that indicate kind of what layout you want. So let's take a quick look there.